Usually when we talk about tracking progress, right? Like whether it's a medical diagnosis or learning a new physical skill, there's this expectation of precision.
Yeah, absolutely. People want clear markers.
Exactly. Like if you suspect you broke your arm, you go get an x-ray. And the image shows that jagged white line on the bone, and the doctor just points at it.
Right. It's either broken or not broken.
Exactly. You're lifting 50 pounds or you're lifting 100 pounds. It's clean, it's, measurable. But when you step into the world of meditation, that x-ray machine it suddenly vanishes.
Oh, it totally evaporates.
Yeah. And even for seasoned practitioners, there's always this lingering anxiety of like, am I actually getting anywhere? Is this working? Or am I just sitting here with my eyes closed?
Which is incredibly frustrating for the human mind. I mean, our brains desperately want neat categories and visible milestones. We're trained to look for output.
Right.
And meditation, at least initially it appears to be, the complete cessation of output.
Which brings us to the core of our source material today. We are looking at an excerpt from a book on the science of meditation, specifically Chapter 6, 1,000 Hours.
It's a fantastic chapter.
It really is. And the mission for this deep dive is to look past the beginner apps and, the vague platitudes and completely demystify the frustrating, often confusing initial phase of learning to meditate.
Because that phase is where most people get stuck.
Exactly. So we are answering two specific questions for you today. First, what does the finish line of this first phase actually feel like physically?
Very important word there, physically.
Right. And second, exactly how long is it going to take your brain to get there?
Because these are the exact questions that cause even dedicated practitioners to plateau or just, abandon the practice entirely.
Yeah, without biological markers, you're just wandering in the dark.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to strip away the mystical jargon that usually surrounds this topic.
Yes, please. We are looking at the raw biological reality of the practice. Because to figure out the timeline, we first have to define the biological criteria of the goal.
Right.
And the text provides a very clear mechanism that relies entirely on tricking your own nervous system.
What's fascinating here is that the source material immediately frames meditation not as an ethereal, purely mental exercise, but as a deeply physiological transformation.
Yeah, it's very grounded.
Exactly. It comes down to evolutionary biology and stillness.
Mm.
When you keep your body perfectly, rigidly still for a long enough period of time, you are essentially hacking your brain's evolutionary safety protocols.
You trick your unconscious brain into believing you've fallen asleep.
Yes. Because if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, early humans...
The only time an early human was ever completely motionless for extended periods was when they were unconscious in a cave.
Right, precisely. Your unconscious brain, specifically the brainstem, relies heavily on physical cues from your skeletal muscles. If those muscles stop sending movement signals, the brain concludes that the sleep cycle has initiated.
Wow.
And when the brain thinks you're sleeping, it runs a very specific autonomic program. It starts shutting down the motor nerves.
Meaning what exactly?
It literally sends paralysis commands down your spinal cord to your skeletal muscles.
Okay, I need to stop you there because the concept of paralysis usually terrifies people.
Oh, sure.
I mean, sleep paralysis is generally described as a nightmare scenario, right?
Mm.
Where you wake up but your body is trapped. Why on earth is that the biological goal of meditation?
Well, it is an excellent distinction to make. In a typical sleep cycle, this paralysis is a vital safety mechanism.
Like so you don't sleepwalk.
Exactly. During REM sleep, when you were dreaming, your brain shuts down those motor nerves so you don't physically act out your dreams.
Right, okay.
If you dream you're running from a tiger, that paralysis keeps you safely in your bed instead of sprinting out a window.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Right, so when people experience terrifying sleep paralysis, it's actually a glitch. Their conscious mind wakes up abruptly, but the brainstem haven't lifted the lockdown yet. They panic because they feel trapped.
But in meditation, you are awake the entire time. You are consciously watching the lockdown happen.
Yes, you are observing the mechanism intentionally, which completely removes the panic. As those paralysis commands get sent out, you start to feel the effects physically.
And the text talks about this, right? Like your limbs might start to feel incredibly heavy, like lead.
Right, or they might feel stiff. And then it often progresses to numbness, or these intense vibrations happening in different parts of your body.
The author compares it to an electric current flowing through you.
Yeah, which makes sense.
But see, when people report those fantastic sensations, feeling electric currents or feeling like their body is dissolving, that usually sounds like magic. It sounds mystical and, kind of unattainable.
But look at it through the biological lens. When sensory input from the muscles cuts off, the nervous system sometimes amplifies internal signals.
Oh, I see.
That electric current is literally just the raw data of your nervous system idling. Your motor nerves are powering down, one by one.
That's incredible.
It really is. And knowing these physiological markers completely changes the psychological game. You stop worrying if you were doing it right because you know exactly what biological signals indicate progress.
It's almost like, is this basically like when your computer monitor goes to sleep to save power, but you can still hear the internal fans whirring?
That's a great analogy.
Like the processor is still running at maximum capacity, but the external hardware has been shut down to conserve energy.
That is a highly accurate way to conceptualize it.
Uh-huh.
The screen goes dark, the external output is paralyzed, but the CPU, your conscious awareness, is fully active.
Wow.
And the ultimate biological marker of completing this initial phase, according to the text, is a full-body vibration from head to toe.
A full body vibration.
Yeah, that indicates systemic relaxation where your motor nerves are fully shut down. You've achieved a state where your mind is fully awake, but your body is completely asleep.
The awake sleep state. And the author says if you can enter this state readily and stay in it as long as you want, the initial phase is officially complete. You have your X-ray.
Exactly. You have a measurable biological milestone.
But if achieving this is just a biological process of the nervous system, then we're really just talking about neuroplasticity.
Fully are.
We are trying to rewire a habit so the brain drops into this awake sleep state on command. Which brings us to the timeline. How long does that rewiring actually take?
Well, the author pulls from several wildly different historical and modern traditions to answer this. Now, obviously, individual physical conditions vary, but history gives us a solid baseline. We can start with the Kung Fu masters.
Oh, right. The text mentions a practice called Zanzhuang, which translates to standing meditation, and the
Yes.
requirement there is staggering. Kung Fu masters make their new students practice this standing meditation for 3 entire years before teaching them a single martial arts technique.
It speaks to how foundational this neurological rewiring is for physical mastery. But let's look at the mechanics of Zanzhuang for a moment,
Sure.
because standing up seems totally counterintuitive to the awake sleep concept.
That was exactly my thought. If the goal is to trick the brain into thinking you are in a deep, relaxing sleep, how does standing in a rigid martial arts stance achieve that?
Right, because you're working.
Yeah, you're actively using muscles to keep from falling over.
It is a brilliant physiological paradox. In Zanzhuang, you hold a specific posture, often looking like you're hugging an invisible tree.
Okay.
Initially, it is agonizing muscle fatigue. But the constraint is absolute stillness.
Ah,
Because you cannot move to relieve the tension, your nervous system is forced into a corner. To endure the posture, the brain eventually has to stop fighting and release the unnecessary muscular tension.
dropping into that autonomic relaxation.
Exactly, dropping into it while the core structural muscles do the absolute minimum work to keep you upright.
It's forcing the relaxation response through sheer endurance. And the math the author provides for this is intense.
Let's hear it.
So if a student practices this standing meditation for 1 hour a day over those 3 years, it works out to roughly 1,000 hours of meditation.
Yep.
If they practice for 3 hours a day, it's closer to 3,000 hours.
And that 1,000 to 3,000 hour window appears again when the text shifts to a completely different tradition.
The Taoist internal alchemy, right, or Nidan,
Correct.
they have a specific stage called the 100 Days of Foundation Building, which at first sounds like a fast-track alternative to 3 years of standing around.
Oh, it is not a fast track. It is an absolute crucible. This 100 days is not an hour a day. It is an intensive, completely silent retreat.
Wow.
You are isolated from the outside world. Sensory deprivation is a major component here, which massively accelerates the inward focus.
The timeline is brutal. The practitioners meditate for 12 hours a day.
12 hours.
The other 12 hours are reserved strictly for eating and sleeping. If you run those numbers, 12 hours a day times 100 days, that equals 1,200 hours of meditation.
Notice how closely that aligns with the baseline established by the Kung Fu masters.
Yeah, it's really close.
And the author doesn't just rely on ancient history either. If we connect this to the bigger picture, We see the exact same biological threshold appearing in modern corporate metrics.
Yes, the text looks at Silicon Valley. Google offers rigorous meditation courses to their employees.
They do.
And one of the prerequisites for becoming a meditation instructor at Google is having at least 1,500 hours of meditation experience.
Which perfectly splits the difference between the 1,000 hours of the quick Kung Fu learner and the 1,200 hours of the Taoist monk.
That's wild.
Ancient martial arts, silent monastic retreats, modern tech companies, they all independently arrived at this exact same threshold.
The crucible for completing the initial phase of meditation is roughly 1,000 hours.
1,000 hours.
Okay, I see the logic, but I have to push back on this.
Go for it.
Because 1,000 hours sounds utterly paralyzing. The text mentions Buddhist monks meditating for 4 hours twice a day.
Right.
If I have a daily commute, a 9-to-5 job, and family obligations, 1,000 hours feels like a life sentence.
It sounds daunting.
It really does. And if I just sit poorly for 1,000 hours, does it still count? Like, is this just raw biological exposure therapy? Or am I doomed to never hit this milestone because I can't go to a silent retreat?
It is pure neuroplasticity, which is why it actually is exposure therapy. Think of neuroplasticity as water carving a canyon.
Okay.
A sudden, massive flood, like a 100-day silent retreat, will carve that canyon very quickly. But a steady, persistent stream will eventually carve the exact same canyon.
Right.
The 1,000 hours isn't an arbitrary punishment. It just takes that much repetitive exposure for the human nervous system to permanently adapt to dropping into the state of awake asleep on command.
It's the biological cost of admission. But how do we practically accumulate this time? Because if I try to sit for an hour today, I'm going to be in agony by minute 20 and I'll probably just quit.
Well, this is where the text offers a crucial paradigm shift for the modern practitioner. The key realization is that total accumulated time is what matters, not the length of an individual marathon session.
The author's actually very blunt about this. The text says that for a beginner, trying to sit still for more than a few minutes can literally become physical and mental torture.
Yes.
So you shouldn't even try. The recommendation is to start with tiny, almost absurdly small increments. 1 minute,
Just 1 minute.
then gradually extending to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Because the goal is accumulation without building a psychological aversion to the practice.
That makes sense.
If you associate meditation with physical torture, your brain will flood your system with stress hormones the moment you sit down.
Which is the opposite of what we want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actively prevents the awake sleep relaxation response we just talked about.
Uh-huh.
The text gives a highly practical workaround, though.
Yeah, the reading strategy. If you're sitting down to read a book for 2 hours, set an alarm, meditate for just 5 minutes every half hour.
Right.
By the time you finish the book, you have comfortably accumulated 20 minutes of practice time without ever fighting through the agony of a long sit.
Exactly.
But hang on, though. Earlier we talked about how this entire process is about tricking the brain into initiating its sleep protocol.
Yes.
It takes me 20 minutes just to fall asleep at night. How does 1 minute of stillness trick my nervous system into anything? Does a 60-second sit actually contribute to the neuroplasticity of awake sleep?
That is the critical friction point. No, a 1-minute session is not going to instantly trigger the full body paralysis of the awake sleep state.
Okay, then why do it?
Remember the canyon metaphor?
Yeah.
That 1 minute is establishing the signaling pathway. You are training the brain to recognize the cue of intentional stillness.
Oh, I see.
Every time you hold perfectly still for 60 seconds, you're carving the initial groove of that habit.
Just laying the groundwork.
Exactly. Over hundreds of these micro sessions, the brain learns to downregulate the nervous system faster and faster. You are building the infrastructure so that eventually, when you do sit for longer, the brain drops into the state almost immediately.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's like trying to fill a swimming pool.
Okay.
You can drag out this massive, high-pressure fire hose, the 12-hour silent retreat, which is incredibly difficult to control and might just knock you off your feet.
True.
Or you can steadily pour in a teacup of water multiple times a day. At the end of the day, the water all goes to the exact same place.
The pool still fills up. And this raises an important question about how we fundamentally view the mechanics of meditation.
What do you mean?
We have this culturally ingrained stereotype that it only counts if you are sitting cross-legged on a cushion for an hour.
Oh, yeah, the perfect lotus position.
Right. But the text shatters that illusion. You don't need a perfect method. You can observe your breath, you can silently observe your thoughts, or you can scan your bodily sensations. Any of those focal points work.
And your physical posture doesn't even matter. The text specifically notes you can be sitting, standing, or lying down.
Because the only necessary biological trigger is keeping still. Motionlessness is the switch that accumulates the hours.
Wow.
Knowing that every single minute of perfect stillness counts, it reframes the entire endeavor.
Yeah.
It transforms meditation from a monumental monastic chore into an accessible, almost gamified daily habit.
You're just hunting for spare change in your daily schedule to deposit into your 1,000-hour bank account. A minute here, 5 minutes there.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We started this deep dive looking for a way to measure our progress, right? A way to know if we are actually getting anywhere when we close our eyes.
And we found it.
We did. We learned that the finish line of the initial phase isn't some mystical vision. It is a profound, measurable physical state of awake sleep.
Yes.
It's
And we learned that the timeline to achieve this physiological rewiring is dictated by evolutionary biology, resulting in a remarkably consistent metric across human history. Roughly 1,000 accumulated hours of perfect stillness.
The source material is very honest with us about the reality of this timeline, too. It says that during those first 1,000 hours, the road is full of thorns, twists, and turns.
Not easy.
No, it's going to be frustrating, and you will face moments of extreme boredom and physical discomfort. But accumulating those hours, teacup by teacup, eventually leads to phase 2.
Where things shift.
Right. The text promises that once you cross that biological threshold, the road under your feet becomes wider, flatter, and the internal scenery becomes profound. The author quotes Laozi's Tao Te Ching. The 1,000-mile journey begins with one step.
Which translates perfectly to the biological reality of neuroplasticity. This 1,000-hour journey of awake sleep is built minute by minute. Every single moment of intentional stillness is a structural step forward in the brain.
It fundamentally changes how you can approach the practice today. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building directly on what we've discovered in the text.
I love this part.
The source makes it abundantly clear that keeping still is the absolute key element and that your posture does not matter. So think about your daily routine right now.
Think about all those little gaps.
Yeah. If the only true physical requirement is motionlessness while keeping the mind awake, what ordinary, mundane moments in your day could secretly be transformed into your next 1,000 seconds of meditation practice?
Just waiting.
Exactly. Are you standing still, waiting for the coffee to brew? Sitting rigidly on the train during your commute? Lying motionless in bed for 5 minutes before the alarm goes off?
It all counts.
It all counts. The measuring stick isn't missing anymore. It's right there in your daily routine, ticking away, one still moment at a time. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.